What's your name?
Bree.
That's it?
Bree Siegert.
Okay. But you go by Bree.
Yeah, Briana, but I go by Bree.
Okay. Where are you from?
Originally Omaha, Nebraska, but I just recently moved to Tallahassee, Florida, like in November.
Okay.
hmm
How are you liking that?
I love it.
Yeah?
Yep. New job, new place, but it's so fun.
What are you doing for a job?
I manage a CrossFit gym, Peak Human Performance.
Oh, that's awesome.
hmm
Is it the first time running a gym or?
Yes. I had a lot of experience like with some leadership roles at my last gym, and I had really great bosses that taught me a lot. So I feel like I had a lot of really good tools coming down here.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing CrossFit for?
I started CrossFit in 2013, so I was 20, 32, almost 33 now, so about 13 years.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah, it's probably around the same time as me.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, back in the old school CrossFit days.
It's changed a lot.
It's changed a lot. Actually, where I live now, like a lot of the gyms remind me of like old school CrossFit, like just like the fire breathers and stuff. It's kind of fun.
That's cool.
Though, like, there's a lot of competitions around there and stuff, so it's cool.
How you feeling for this weekend?
I'm excited. I was really bummed not to be competing today, but I'm excited that I get to team up with Leanna tomorrow. I think we're gonna have fun.
Does that anxiety lessen because you're on a team, or do you feel like it's more because someone else is relying on you?
Yeah. I would say like in the past like 3 years, like anytime I've competed on team, I've had something I was dealing with, and it's a lot harder when you feel like you're gonna let other people down. Because I feel like when it's by myself, like I can gauge whether it's worth it or not. But when I'm on a team with someone, it's like I'll just push because I don't want to let my people down. So I think that's where I've had to just like talk. Like I just did a partner competition a couple weeks ago, and I talked to him and I was like, hey, like if any of these events don't feel good, I'm gonna have to stop, and that's just gonna be what it is. And he was cool with it, but it was a local comp too. Once it gets to the higher level, it just gets a little bit more anxiety ridden because you just don't want to have to pull out or get disqualified for something like that when other people are getting hurt by it too.
Sure. It says a lot about you though to be able to have that introspection to, hey, I'm not feeling it. I need to pull back, or I need to pull out of this comp, or
Yeah, I think something that like
a lot of experience.
yes, experience and just athlete maturity for sure. Also just, you get older, you start learning like it's not worth it to have like a healthy you is always going to be a better competitor than an injured you. So sometimes it's just like gauging whether it's worth it or not, and most of the time it's not going to be worth
Yeah.
it. Like, I mean, this injury has held me back for 3 months. Like, I don't want to do that. So if it comes to that, it's better to just like, hey, you know what? Like, don't let your ego get you injured more.
Yeah. Shifting gears a little bit. We're getting a little deeper. Okay.
Okay.
If you weren't doing CrossFit, your job is also related to CrossFit, what would you be doing?
Oh my gosh, this is such a crazy question because my like CrossFit changed my whole like trajectory in life. And it's really crazy that I even do CrossFit considering like my experience with it when I started was terrible.
Okay.
Like bad gym that I went to, like bad ownership, terrible coaches, no community, just like everything that you would love about CrossFit. I didn't get that for like my first 2 years of CrossFit. Um, but I actually was pretty like a pretty bad alcoholic in my younger years. And CrossFit, I just felt like I didn't have a purpose. So CrossFit really gave me a purpose, and I don't really think anyone like thought I would get anywhere in life. Like if I'm being really honest. So it's really hard looking back like 13 years ago, but I just don't think I would have gotten myself out of the hole that I'd gotten myself into at that time. CrossFit just kind of gave me, I don't know what it was, but I knew that was where I wanted my life to go, and I stopped drinking, smoking, everything. Like my first month of CrossFit, I was like, I'm gonna stop this, and I love the way I feel when I'm done with a CrossFit workout, and I want to keep feeling that way, and drinking and all these other things are not promoting that. So it's really hard to say, but I was just a bartender at the time, or not just a bartender, like it's a fun job. But uh, yeah, that made me get my personal training certificate, which led to CrossFit and just being able to impact other people's lives through CrossFit like I was. So I can't say exactly where, but I don't think it would be a good place.
Yeah. So yeah. So definitely CrossFit has put you on a good path, on a
Hmm.
good trajectory, or pulled you out of kind of a darker road.
Yeah, for sure. It's crazy too, like that shift that it makes, and it's like I know that that was a huge change for me, and CrossFit had a big part of that, and it's like I just wanted to share that with the world. Anyone that was struggling, like get into CrossFit, find that community. Everyone here is going to care about you the second you walk through the door. Whether they know you or not, they just know that you're like coming in, and that's all they care about.
All right. Childhood
Oh,
upbringing.
oh no.
You grew up in Nebraska.
Yeah, back and forth between Nebraska and Iowa, but they're like where the what would you call that? Like the border.
Okay.
It's like basically across the bridge, so Council Bluffs, Omaha.
Okay. Um, Younger schooling years. How was that for you?
Um, Pretty good up until I was probably about like 6. Yeah, my parents were together. Um, my dad worked a lot, so he wasn't around a whole lot when I was younger. But my mom was a really great mom. They got divorced when I was 6. Not a bad thing. I don't feel like that ever really affected me. They fought a lot. Like, kind of weird for a 6-year-old to think that I felt more relieved that they weren't together than when they were together, if that makes sense. But I lived with my mom from the time I was 6 until I was 12. And then I lived with my dad from the time I was 12 until I was about like 17.
Okay. Personal choice or
Um, well, I lived with my mom until I was 12 because she, I don't know, like, I always like feel bad bringing some things up from my childhood because they're pretty like not fun topics, but I don't know. Like, okay,
as much as you want to share. You don't
so
have to share anything.
like I'd said, and I'm not like, I don't like hide it or anything, it's part of my life, and I think it's, at this point, I've like healed from a lot of it, so it's easy to talk about. And I'm sure people deal with some similar things, but no, my mom was a really, really great mom when I was little. Like, I adored her. She was like my idol. Like no one in the world could touch my mom. She was just the most beautiful person to me. But when I was about 10, her boyfriend at the time, who had been in our lives for a while, like his kids were like our siblings. He killed himself, and then that like really shifted my mom a lot, and just like, I mean, she was younger than me, I think, when that happened, or maybe my age when that happened. And to be like honest, if that had happened to me, I don't know how I would have dealt with it. And so she ended up like meeting a guy that got her onto drugs, and then that's where like my mom lost custody of us and stuff. And it's kind of crazy how drugs just take over people's lives without them realizing it, because it's like one thing at a time. Like, started like stop paying like the mortgage, and then okay, well, we don't have cable anymore. Sometimes the heat or the AC wouldn't work, and just as a kid, you don't realize that like it's because your parents don't have money. You just are like, this is my life.
Seems normal.
Yeah, exactly. And like I kind of grew up in the ghetto, so like that was kind of the normal for a lot of kids. um and then she lost her job, so we got evicted from the house, and the cops kept showing up at our house because her boyfriend was dealing drugs, and just thugs coming in and out all the time. There's just different people in and out. It just wasn't a good environment for kids. Me and my brother were there, and my littlest sister, who was an infant. So I took the role of like taking care of them a lot, you know. Um, and then so my dad got custody of us, which like, to at the time, I didn't feel like he's really was ready for that. Because he, like I said, he worked a lot. And I love my dad. He's a great dad. But he was very much like, I need to provide for my family, and that meant that he was just not home a lot, and then that would frustrate him. So he would drink a lot, and then just kind of the kids were just nuisances a little bit. Um, so just ended up living with my dad, and then I started just rebelling, and that's when I started like drinking and doing drugs and just anything I could to just not deal with whatever was going on. And
Escape from that.
yeah, it was just really hard. Like, I'd say the worst feeling was just one, like my mom stopped coming around. So we never knew where she was at. Unless she got arrested, then she would like write us a letter and it's like, oh well now at least we know where she is. But we weren't really allowed to talk to her. Um and then like she got pregnant with my brother and I never really even got to see him because he got put up for adoption. So it's just like things like that that were just felt like I never had control of anything and I never knew what was going to happen. So it was just caused like a lot of anxiety in me as a kid and I stopped going to school. And this is where like I think for me in high school it just got like really hard to catch up from skipping school and stuff. Like I basically got to the point where I was just gonna drop out. Like I was looking into what I needed to do to drop out of school. Um, I didn't like going because I got so far behind. Like we moved around a lot with my dad too, so it's like, you know, some schools I felt like, oh, like I've already learned this, so then I'd just be bored, and then other schools like I didn't know what was going on because they'd been like ahead of where I was at, so I just felt like stupid at that point. And um I had a teacher like basically just like yell my grade out in front of the class and it was like super embarrassing to me because I was failing my math class and I was at a new school and everyone there seemed to just be like honor roll, like all in sports and things like that. And I was like, I am never asking someone for help again. And I was like, fuck that. Like, I'm never like getting help. I'm not coming back to this class. And from then on, I was just like, I like not going to class, I'm just gonna like skip school and smoke weed with my friends and, do whatever I want. Well, then, like 15, I think I was 15, my dad and my therapist like told me if I got in any more trouble that I was gonna go to rehab, and I was like, cool, noted. And then that night I snuck out and went to a party that got busted, and I got in a lot of trouble from that party. There's a lot going on, and so I get back and my dad was like furious. I was so scared.
Yeah.
I was like, my dad is gonna kill me. So ended up going to rehab, and my mom like this is kind of like a weird roundabout story, but my mom ended up like she was pregnant with my sister at the time, still on drugs and wanted to get off of drugs because she was pregnant, obviously. Literally homeless. My mom like she's been through the most of anyone I've ever met. Like she is the toughest bitch I've ever met in my life, and she's so happy. Like you would never guess she's been through everything she has been. But at this point, like she goes to this hospital where like I had to stay for a week before I went to rehab because they thought I was gonna run away. They were being dramatic. I didn't care. But anyways, I had to go to this hospital for it and also to like detox, but whatever. So I go there and like one of the nurses and me like never really got along, and I felt like she was just out to get me. And like when I'd talk back to her, she'd like tell me to go to my room and write, talking back will not get me what I want 1,000 times before I could leave. And I'd just sit in my room for 3 days and not leave. So I was a brat. And so like go to rehab. It's a couple hours away from where I live. And 2 weeks later, my mom shows up and the nurse is like, so my mom never lost her rights to us. She just like
Okay.
wasn't, she just like stopped coming around. My dad never wanted to take her rights from her. Um, but I think we moved kind of far away and she just didn't have the means to like see us at that time. But anyways, it had been 3 years since I'd spoken to her. And so my mom like shows up and this nurse that I did not get along with at all. She asked her, because my mom and I have different last names too. So
Okay.
she goes by her maiden name, which is Brownfield, and I'm Siegert. And so the nurse was like, are you related to like a Briana by chance? And my mom said, well, I have a daughter named Briana. Why? And she's like, you guys look and sound the exact same. Like, first I need to know a few details before I can tell you any more like HIPAA. She finds out like my mom's never lost custody, tells her where I'm at, and then my mom decided to go to rehab and get sober. And so ever since then, my mom and I have like reconnected and built a really strong relationship. Like we have a really good relationship now. But
Awesome.
that's like how I like got in touch with my mom again. So, anyways, got out of rehab, started getting my shit together.
How old now? Out of rehab?
16.
Okay.
Yeah, so got out of there, started getting my shit together, and slowly but surely, I had to work really hard to make up for like my sophomore year where I was just a dumbass and like failed all my classes.
Sure.
But I made it.
Yeah. I wanted to backtrack a little bit. You mentioned your therapist.
hmm
How old were you when you first started seeing a therapist?
I think we were, or I was 12, but like it was court ordered because
Okay.
of everything going on with my mom and stuff, which I didn't really like. It's different when your parents are forcing you and then your parents are like also in the room with you. It's hard to talk about things, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know, it's kind of hard. But in rehab, like I actually didn't hate being there. It was really helpful in a lot of ways. And you're just like in this place with 20 other girls that are it gives you a lot of perspective at a young age. Like people have it rough, you know?
Some are some are dealing with similar things, some are dealing with some pretty
Yeah, and like the therapist there, because like everyone that works with you in the rehab facility is a therapist, or like a counselor, and they didn't treat us like kids, like they treated us like peers, you know, and so it made it easier to talk to them and kind of like unravel some things. So I think it was for the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely like some things that definitely feel very like restricted and controlled. But I think it was kind of the first time that I felt like I could just openly talk to somebody about things that I had been going through because I just never had anyone to talk to about it, and I was like never it was never like comfortable to talk about my emotions in the house, you know, and I felt like everyone like the way that they reacted to emotion was always like anger. And so I would just shut down and just not say anything.
Yeah.
And so that kind of gave me like a voice to just be open and other girls to talk to. And when you start to be able to relate to someone, you realize you're not the only person going through it. But yeah, there would be times where they'd just be like, go in your room and like I'd have to just be there for like 6 hours alone, just like staring at a wall. So that was not fun.
Yeah. No, I get that for sure.
I also started like hating Richard Simmons when I was in rehab.
Oh, because that's what they would play?
So our like exercise time, which like at this time, and this when I was in rehab is kind of like when we identified that I had like an eating disorder and that I over exercised. And so they wouldn't let me shut my door because I thought that I would exercise and I was only allowed to exercise like with the girls. But they would put in like workout videos and that's what we did for, you know, like 45 minutes. And one of the girls would always, so like each week, one girl, like we got to pick every day, like what videos we wanted to do. One girl would pick Richard Simmons every single day. And by like Wednesday, I was like, I swear if Lindsay picks Richard Simmons one more time, I'm going to lose my shit. And I lost my shit. Like at points redacted, like you get like a 0 to 100 point day. And if you get 100, that's like a perfect score. I got like my card with an X on it because I lost it.
You didn't even care.
I was like, I can never listen to Richard Simmons' voice again in my life.
Got it. Maybe I'm like,
Oh my god.
speaking of Richard Simmons,
I would die. I'd be like, nope, that's it.
what kind of setup is this? So, 16, out of rehab. What'd you start doing for work?
When I was 16?
Or like
Dairy Queen.
Okay.
Yeah. That was a pretty fun job.
Yeah.
My best friends worked there, so it was fun.
Were you into any sports at that time?
No, I didn't play any sports. I danced and cheered like most of my life, but when we lived with my dad, like I said, like we just moved schools a lot, so that was kind of another reason I think I like started just getting into like a bad crowd, which also like when we would move schools, like the easiest crowd to fall into would usually be like the bad kids because they were just accepting of anyone that would come. You know what I mean? And so I don't even want to like call them bad, but like I think that's just where I gravitated to because I was just like, oh, here's a group that will accept me no matter what. Like all I have to do is like smoke cigarettes and get drunk. Cool, easy, got it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so always being the new kid, it's just like you have to try to be a chameleon a little bit or just shut down. And I like didn't really my brother kind of shut down where I was like, I'm gonna find someone that'll accept me, you know.
That's hard though because then you're kind of playing into maybe what their likes are and their interests are more so than what you truly like.
Yeah.
When did you start finding what Brie likes?
I'd say probably, man, I don't know. I think my senior year of high school, like I started getting like a little bit more hang on like who I was as a person, like started hanging out with a different friend group and we were all so different which made us like we're still like best friends to this day,
Yeah.
you know, and we're still so different from each other. Like it's crazy that we're even still friends. But I'd say like it really took a long time to find my voice, and like even when I started CrossFit, like I think that's why I just stuck in a gym that was not a good gym. Just because it was like a group of people that accepted me. So, man, I don't know. I'd say probably when I was about like 23 is when I really felt like I was okay. Like I'm starting to be me and I like who this is, and you know, I feel like that changed every 3 years, but
Sure.
definitely like got better about like making my own decisions based on like what I wanted and not what was suiting other people.
Yeah. And so now we're what, 18, 20. You start getting into CrossFit
20.
pretty
Yeah.
soon, yeah.
Yeah, my college days were not good. That was like when I like started living on my own, I think there was like a 2 year period that I was literally drunk every day, and like at least once a week I was blacked out or like puking, like just like didn't know how I got home. Like that would happen on a weekly basis, and I started like getting into fitness. Um just I started doing this like workout video with my friend Ashley, Insanity. Do you remember that?
Yes.
We would like literally like go drinking the night before, and then in the morning she'd be like, come to my house and do Insanity with me, and I'd be like, fine. But I started loving the feeling of like high intensity, and then I was like, maybe I should just stop drinking beer and drink vodka instead. So that was like
Okay.
baby steps.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
we're getting there. Which honestly is probably worse, but it was like less calories or whatever. But I started like seeing results, you know, and I was just like, man, I like love the feeling of like pushing it in the gym. Like this is so much better than any like drunk feeling or high feeling I've had, you know. And so then I was like, I want to do more. And so I got into the gym, and then every day I just started working out. And I came across a Groupon for CrossFit, and it was kind of like hitting everything I wanted to try, like weightlifting, but I was too afraid to do it in a gym setting. Like I just had never done it, so it was just intimidating, I guess, you know. And I started CrossFit. I like walked into the gym, and there's like all these like hot dudes with their shirts off doing like butterfly pull-ups. They were doing some open workout, like Fran Franland or something like that. Fantasyland. I can't remember what it is. It's like every 4 minutes you do like 3 rounds of 15 chest bar, 15 thrusters, and you just keep going until failure. Yeah, so they were doing that, and I was like, this is my place. Complete dungeon gym. I mean, graffiti on the wall, like the walls are basically falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't even remember if there, I think there was one bathroom. Like, yeah, it was literally a warehouse, and I was like, this is my place. And I paid for a whole year up front with all my serving cash and bartending cash that I had. Like, every year I saved up money. I'd just like go home like at the end of a shift, $20 like in my drawer, and then I'd bring it all up and spend it on something I wanted. And usually it was like a shopping spree or vacation, and this time it was CrossFit. So that's how I got into CrossFit.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How far along into it did you decide to compete for the first time?
I wanted to like right away. Like the gym I started at, they were pretty competitive. Um, and I was like, I want to do that. That looks fun. You know, I always like wanted to do sports growing up, but just never could. Like either we couldn't afford it or we moved, and like by the time tryouts came, I'd already like missed it, you know? So it was a good outlet. And I just am competitive like naturally as a person, so it was fun. It was a fun environment. I'd say like right away it was kind of a goal of mine.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of 3 months into doing CrossFit for me. I signed up for my first comp.
Really? Yeah, I think I was like, so I started in, it would have been February, like end of February, and I think my first competition was in the summer, like June.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The worst experience ever.
Yeah, it was awful. Yeah, I remember it, and like everything felt so heavy. Like I remember there's like a workout that was 15, 12, 9 of like 95-pound power cleans and push press. And like those push press just felt like they were destroying me. Like I was screaming on them. And like now that weight is like no bit, that's
Sure,
like
of course.
a regular weight, you know? But at the time it felt so heavy.
Yeah, it was a house for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving into competing, now we're at this point a sober Bree, a happy Bree. What is competing? What does it mean for you? What does it do for you? you get joy or satisfaction from it, what is competition for you now?
That's such a good question because it's changed so much in the last year, especially since working with Kyle and like Blacklisted. Um, I think my like competition experience before that, like there never was like a super like positive um feeling around it. Either I was too hard on myself or just the environment I was in was like a little bit it was like yeah, it's like competition or bust, you know? Like we're caring about our competitors, but if you're not a competitor, like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, good luck, you know? And I think like when I hired Kyle as my coach last year, I was also dealing with a lot of injuries. And so I was almost just like scared to like train for competition. And he was really helpful with that. And then meeting the Blacklisted crew, I just realized like, wow, there is like fun in competition. And like, you can still have a community of people that support you and be supportive while like competing against each other, but we're still like with each other, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. So to me now it's just it's really fun. Like I really had to identify like why I competed, and this happened in like the last year, which is kind of sad because I've been competing since like 2016.
Yeah.
But I think like in the last year I really had to ask myself like why would you compete if you're not having fun? And I was like, I do have fun when I'm competing. Like at the end of the day it is fun, and when I compete, like that is the goal. And I think beach brawl was like the first time like I went and um I was just excited to be around the Blacklisted community. Like I feel like I have such a family here. And so I was excited to be with them. And that whole weekend, like I even told Kyle, like I didn't look at the leaderboard. I was like, I just want to have fun, So like, and I knew there was an event that like was hard on my back, and I just knew I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do 125 pounds on this complex, and I'm just quitting. I don't care. Like I'm not gonna hurt myself. And I ended up doing like 185, and I was like, okay, I'll look at the leaderboard now, and I like happened to like I won, but I didn't know I was winning like up to that point. Yeah, no, I mean like I don't mean to say like that, but Leanna and I were just talking about this before we left the venue today, but because she was talking about like how much fun she had today, and I was just like, yeah, like the best I've ever done competing is when I'm just having fun with my friends, and it's like, okay, we're gonna go on the floor, we're gonna push hard and like send it, give it your all. When you get off, we're gonna go and laugh and eat gummy bears.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's just fun, and it's like why I put all this work into training and not have fun with it.
Yeah. So competition is fun.
FUN.
I like that.
Do you feel like you're proving or having to prove something to yourself or to others now that you compete? And I mean, in a way, you've kind of answered that, and you're doing it for. It's hard to say for fun because it's still competitive.
Yeah.
But you're keeping the joy in it. So when you do that, it's hard to externalize that into wanting to prove to others that you're good or wanting to prove to yourself that like you're doing it for joy, and results usually just kind of come from that.
Yeah, I think that's been like the biggest shift for sure. And it like lets go of comparison and stuff because there's just like I mean, it's super cliche, but like comparison like truly is a thief of joy. And at the end of the day, I'm like, why do I care? Like why would I like put that pressure on myself to be comparing myself to someone that's not me? And that's only gonna make me a worse athlete.
Okay, so you've gone back to joy in competing. Before this year, was there a moment where you wanted to walk away from sport, from competing, from all of that?
Yeah. Yeah, I was dealing with such a chronic back injury. Like, it was more like my neck and upper back, but I, like, every day for like a year and a half had constant pain in my back. Like, just sitting here would be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Last year, and I was like, at the time, I was supposed to be going team at my last gym, and I was like, I don't really want to switch my programming before this. And he was like, yeah, like, I wouldn't want you to do that either. Like, I'm training with the team, it wouldn't be fair to be doing something else without them. But I was like, after this, I really want to work with someone one-on-one and see like do you think it's even worth it for me to compete with this injury? Like, is there a way that I can continue to see improvements when I can't weight lift? And he's like, I definitely think we can, but if we're looking a year from now, like, you're not going to succeed. We need to look at like tomorrow and next week and just build from there. And that that was like a huge turnaround. But like I think had I like not hired Kyle, I probably would have like thrown in the towel. But I also say, like never say never. Because I do think that like you said, like when you start doing things for fun, the results kind of just show. And I think when I take it that way versus like if I don't compete this year, I'm just done. Like that's not fair to do to yourself or other people. Like I wouldn't do that to somebody else. And so it's kind of just like, you know what, like let's just take the next qualifier and do the best that you can and not worry about the results of it other than just like executing the best of your ability and being satisfied with that at the end of the day. And so taking that approach of like being more in the present with like maybe one step ahead or two steps ahead versus looking at the whole staircase, like if I don't qualify for this semifinal, like I suck, I shouldn't be doing this. You know what I mean? That's like the attitude that I used to have. And I'm so far removed from that now. And yeah, I would say that like this time last year, I was probably like, this is going to be my last. I would like semifinals might have been my last one, but then I didn't do it. So things changed and I hired Kyle a little bit sooner and it was for the best.
And here you are. Okay. What do you think, even if it's not true, that people misunderstand about you as an athlete, a person, or anything?
Um, oh man. It's so hard to like look at yourself through the lens of other people, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think I think people like underestimate my ability to manage and handle emotions. I think that's like an area I've improved a lot. But I'm also just like really bubbly and happy all the time. So, um, like being that type of personality, I like people are like if I'm not like smiling and happy, they think I'm upset, and I'm just like no, I'm just like focused.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think that and
Were you always this bubbly and outgoing, I guess you would say?
yeah, yeah, and that's like another thing too is like when I am like upset, I like if I truly am, I'm almost like more cheerful because
Mm.
that's just something I developed growing up. Like in my life, like I just kind of had to like no matter what was happening at home, like I'd show up at school and just be happy, bubbly, like talking with everybody, laughing, things like that. And so it's something I've taken into adulthood. Um, but yeah, because of that, I feel like I am one of those people that people don't think they need to check in on, you know. And so I'm not struggling now. I have had my struggles with depression pretty badly in the past, and it was like some darker times. And people like when I opened up about it, they were like, I never knew you could struggle with that. You're just always so happy, and that's not anyone's fault, but I definitely say that's probably a big one.
Is that so because of your childhood upbringing, all of that, you've kind of developed, or you had developed this mask, I guess, in being the bubbly, outgoing person that people see
Yeah.
on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Which could be the case most of the time, but when you're also going through maybe a rough patch, you still kind of put that mask out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And is that to keep people away from you? Is that to like not draw attention to yourself? Or do you feel like that's more just for you to get through the day?
I think it's just because I like truthfully just don't want to be a burden on anybody. And so I feel like if I let that show that it's gonna like ruin the mood or
Mm.
I don't know, like I just feel like it's gonna be like, oh, we have to deal with this, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah.
So I think I'm a little bit better now. I've gotten a better handle on those emotions anyways, like in the last again, like the last year I feel like I've just changed so much as a person. But there was like a 3 year stint, I'd say up until like last spring where I was really struggling with depression. And finally like you start opening up about those things when you get through it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you get through the storm and you're like, oh yeah, I was like really struggling with this back then, but it's fine now, and then my friends are
Absolutely.
like, oh my, why didn't you say anything? And I was just like, like you moved and you had things going on and like that's the reason that I wouldn't present those things. And even some of my best friends, you know, like they didn't know. And so I think that like that like kind of made them feel bad that they didn't recognize it. But I'm also just I've spent my whole life like hiding those
Mm-hmm.
like bad like negative emotions, you know. So
And it's really hard when you're deep in it to even reach for help.
yeah,
You're too consumed
that's
by
like
all of that.
the words that I used was like I felt like I was drowning.
Yep.
You know, like you can kind of see the surface, but then like the worse you feel, it starts to get darker, and then you're just like, I'm so far down, I don't even know what to do.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy.
Yeah. That's what this tattoo is right here.
Oh, cool.
Just kind of like this mask that we all wear.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was always, it always came across as a very like intimidating, don't fuck with me kind of person.
So we're like the opposite in a
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like same
So
same
it's
emotions,
cool to
but
see,
yeah.
it's cool to see that side of it where you have you've had a different take on it or a different way to cope with it.
Yeah.
Or a different way to kind of hide those feelings from other people. It's just, yeah.
I would say that like actually I'd say the biggest misconception now that I'm thinking about it is that I'm an extrovert and I'm
Okay.
not. I am in like places I'm comfortable, but like when I get home, like sometimes I'll like drive home in silence and not even realize it. Like, because I work a very extroverted job, and it doesn't mean I don't love it. Like I truly love it. But it can be draining on someone that's just naturally like I wouldn't say I'm like introverted in terms of like I'm like shy or quiet, but I would much rather like be home like watching TV alone in my pajamas most of the time. So like a lot of uh social time can be really draining on me, and people are very surprised when they hear that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah.
You've trained very well as an extrovert.
I think I think I'm changing as a person. I will say that like I noticed when I like kind of got a handle on my depression that I became a little bit more extroverted. So maybe I am by nature and just the depression was masking that. I don't know. I'm still figuring that out.
Could be. Are you still in therapy?
No, not actively. I stopped therapy last August. Yeah. Just with the move and stuff coming up, I was just financial stuff. But I really do feel like I got a handle on the tools and everything. So,
Do you feel like it's helped though?
yeah. Yeah. One, just having a vessel to vent to. But there's a lot of like coping mechanisms. Like one of the biggest ones for me, honestly, it's just like mindset and perspective. You know, like I'm having a bad moment. It doesn't mean I'm having a bad life. Like this is gonna pass, and right now I just need to sit with it and not distract, which is really really hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because you want to just mask them, and then, you know, back years ago I had drugs and alcohol, and like you don't have those things anymore, and it's like, well, what the fuck do I do?
Mm-hmm.
You know. So just learning like tools, and honestly just being able to talk myself through those moments, I think has been helpful.
Speaking of that, in a competitive setting, how well are you at using those tools?
I almost think I'm better in that setting. I'm pretty good at like putting blinders on and just like focusing on what I've got going on in the moment, and I love it too because it's like the most intense moment, but so calming at the same time, and it's like a beautiful feeling. I never have known how to explain it, but it's just so nice to know that there's like chaos around you, and you can channel your mind to focus on one thing in that moment. Like CrossFit truly trains you for life stress,
Mm-hmm.
you know. I mean, I went through like the most stressful things you could possibly go through in the last like several months, and I felt like it was just I was like, oh, this is fine.
Yeah.
Just moving across the country, it's fine.
Yeah. So, we're towards the end here. If you could speak to your younger self right now, given everything that you've learned, where you're at right now, what would be one piece of advice that you would give that, I don't know, 6-year-old, 10-year-old, 12-year-old Brie?
Tough times don't last, tough people do. Big one. There's going to be a lot of bad moments, but every bad thing that happens leads to something good. I can't look back on a single thing in my life and wish that it didn't happen. That's it.
That's awesome. When everything's said and done, no more competition, no more CrossFit. What would you want others to take away from Bree and the impact that you've done in your life?
You know what's so crazy that you asked me that today is I had a member from my old gym text me today, and she's like, I just want to let you know that January wasn't the same without you, and you made a really big impact here, and we'll remember it for a long time. So I think just the word impact, like, was really meaningful to me because that's what I always like wanted, was somebody to like impact me in like a positive way, you know? And so I think just at the end of the day, I would just hope that when people like think about me, they think of like light or positivity, that there's so many good things that happen in the world and you just have to search for it.
Love that.
Yeah.